It's a Monday morning in 1967, in a quiet classroom in Palo Alto, California. A history teacher writes 4 words on the chalkboard: strength through discipline. By Friday, more than 200 students will be saluting him in the hallways, turning in their own friends, and willing to follow him anywhere. None of them are bad people. None of them are stupid. This is the third wave, and it took just 5 days to turn an ordinary classroom into a movement that scared even the man who built it. It started with a question he couldn't answer. The teacher's name was Ron Jones. He taught world history at Cubberley High School, and his class had just finished a unit on Nazi Germany. Then a student raised his hand and asked something simple. How could the German people claim they didn't know? How could millions of ordinary citizens look away while their neighbors were dragged off and murdered? Jones didn't have an answer, so he decided to show them one. He would run an experiment. He would build a little fascism right there in the classroom and see how far it could go. He gave himself a week. Day 1, Monday. Jones walked in and changed one thing: posture. He told the students that real power comes from discipline. Sit up straight, feet flat, hands flat on the desk. He drilled them over and over until 30 teenagers could snap into perfect attention in seconds. He made a rule. When you answer a question, you stand beside your desk. You begin every answer with Mr. Jones. You keep it to 3 words or less. It sounds silly. It sounds like nothing. But something strange happened. The students liked it. The room felt sharper, cleaner. For the first time, the slow kids and the smart kids were equal because everyone followed the same rule. Jones wrote it on the board. Strength through discipline. Day 2, Tuesday. He walked in and the class was already sitting at attention, waiting, so he gave them more. He told them discipline was nothing without community. A group, something bigger than yourself. He gave the movement a name, the third wave. And he gave them a salute, a cupped hand raised to the right shoulder, like a wave curling toward them. From now on, he said, members of the third wave salute each other, even outside class. And they did. In the hallways, in the cafeteria, students who'd barely spoken before were saluting each other across the room. The class wrote it on the board: strength through community. There were 30 students in the class. By the end of the day, there were 43. Day 3, Wednesday. The thing started to grow on its own. Jones handed out membership cards. He gave assignments. Design a banner. Recruit new members. Learn the salute. And then he did something darker. He told 3 students their job was to report anyone who broke the rules. Just 3 informers. But by the end of the day, he had been handed the names of nearly 20 students by classmates eager to prove their loyalty. Nobody made them do it. They volunteered. The class had ballooned. Students were cutting their other classes just to attend. 30 had become more than 200. They had a chant, they had a salute, they had rules, and they had each other. On the board, strength through action. Here's what should scare you. The students were happier. Jones noticed it. The ones who'd always felt invisible suddenly belonged to something. The loners had friends. The rules gave them a place to stand. One girl turned her own father in for criticizing the group. A star athlete appointed himself Jones's personal bodyguard, following him everywhere. They weren't being forced. They were volunteering for their own control, because the third wave gave them the one thing teenagers want most: to matter. To be part of something certain in a world that felt like chaos. That's the trick. Fascism doesn't arrive as a monster. It arrives as a feeling of belonging. Day 4. Thursday. It was getting out of hand and Jones knew it. The thing he'd built in 3 days had 200 members and a momentum he no longer controlled, so he decided to end it. But to end it, he had to go bigger. He gathered them and told them a lie. The third wave wasn't just their school. It was a national movement growing in secret all across the country. And tomorrow at noon, a presidential candidate would appear on television and announce the third wave to the entire nation. They were the beginning of something huge. Be in the auditorium at noon. Bring your friends. He wrote the last motto on the board. Strength through pride. Day 5. Friday. Noon. More than 200 students packed into the auditorium, silent, at attention, waiting for their leader to appear on the screen. Jones turned on the television. Static. Nothing. The students waited and waited. And then Jones turned it off and told them the truth. There is no leader. There is no national movement. You were manipulated. You gave up your freedom for the feeling of belonging, exactly the way an entire nation did 30 years ago. Then he played them film of the Nuremberg rallies, the salutes, the crowds, the discipline, the same hunger to follow, the same surrender. And the room went silent because they finally understood the answer to the question that started it all. How could the German people not know? They knew. They just preferred it. For years, almost nobody believed it. It sounded too clean, too fast. Jones finally wrote it all down in 1976 in an essay simply called The Third Wave. It became a novel, then a film, then a German movie called Die Welle that imagined the same experiment ending in real violence. And it sits next to the other famous warnings from that era. Stanley Milgram, who showed that ordinary people would deliver what they believed were lethal shocks just because a man in a coat told them to. Philip Zimbardo, whose students became cruel prison guards in a matter of days. Different rooms, different decades, the same uncomfortable result. The line between a normal person and a follower is thinner than any of us want to admit. The third wave lasted 5 days. Ron Jones barely spoke about it for years because of how easy it had been. Not how hard, how easy. The students went back to being students, but many of them said they never forgot the feeling, how good it felt to obey, how safe it felt to belong. We like to think we'd be the one who said no, the one who saw through it. But 200 ordinary kids thought that too, right up until the moment they raised their hands. It doesn't start with hatred. It starts with wanting to belong. And that part of you never went away.